Hi everyone, it's Kelly with Women for One, and today I'm really excited to be talking with Erin Stutland. So thank you and welcome to the Women for One community.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and I actually was opened my mind and was introduced to Erin through, I think it was either Chris Carr or Marie Forleo, one of the two or both. And I was just so moved by Erin's integration of the mind, body, and spirit, and really taking action in our lives instead of just sitting in the spirit and asking all these mental questions, really embodying it in the body. And I really believe that that's the most important piece that a lot of us are missing. So Erin is a motivator, an actress, a life coach, a regular trainer. I mean, she's doing everything. And what I love that you said on your site is your job is to move people mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And I love that movement, because I find that when I move my body, it makes everything else move for me.
Yeah,
So welcome, and thank you again for being here.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah. So I want to start because Women for One is all about women sharing their stories and how they came to be where they are today, and maybe some struggles they overcame. Can you just give our community a few pieces of background about yourself and how you came to be who you are today?
Yeah, sure. I grew up as a dancer. It's what I did all my life and through college growing up. And I was always that kid that had a lot of energy, probably had a little bit of a hard time focusing and concentrating. So, I was a kid in third grade that I had an agreement with my third grade teacher that I could stand next to my desk because just sitting, I felt like I couldn't concentrate. I was distracted. So I was always moving, and movement has always been a big part of my life. And then in college, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and because it was my first year of college, I know you have kids in college. It's such a it's such a big time in someone's life when you go off to college and your life is changing and transitioning. So to have this big sort of thing happen in our family it was really traumatic, and I went through a really tough time after she was diagnosed. I struggled with a lot of anxiety and depression, and I think that was really when I started really investigating and seeking into how can I change this? Because when I realized finally that I was like, I'm depressed. That's exactly what I didn't, because this was a time before, everyone was sort of diagnosed with depression. I didn't really even know what was going on with me. All of a sudden, I just didn't feel like myself. I was sad all the time. I didn't want to do the things that I regularly wanted to do. I discovered this is what you have, depression. I went to go see a therapist. She wanted to put me on medication, and I was like, I'm not interested in that. So that's when I really started seeking and doing some spiritual seeking and reading and investigating all that. And that was sort of the opening of that part of my life. And then as I moved on, I continued dancing. I moved into acting, and then started teaching fitness on the side. As an artist, you have so many different jobs that you do. Fitness became one of them. And I really wanted to find a way to integrate all of the spiritual seeking that I was doing with my love for movement. And that was sort of the impetus and the start of sort of, of the beginning of this business that I'm running now.
That's fabulous. That's quite the journey. And
yeah.
But what is the difference between someone that has that yearning but then actually manifests it? Because you talk about manifesting a lot in what you do, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm just curious, what is that quality that helped you move forward to manifest what you've done?
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me was, and I think a lot of other women in this community or other people who are like coaches or running a business will relate to this. The whole impetus was really for myself, was to heal myself. And it wasn't really about helping others. And I think that's an okay place to start. I think this is about taking care of yourself, fulfilling your own soul, fulfilling your own creativity, your own creative callings. And for me, that's how this all began. This was, I'll say in a sense, a selfish act of creative expression and fulfillment. And I was actually just listening to a great interview with Elizabeth Gilbert talking a little bit about that, who has the book Big Magic, and talking about that, your acts of creativity really are not about being of service. They are about you expressing what's on your heart and what's on your mind. And then if they become an act of service, well, then good on you.
Yes.
But, if I'm telling the truth, this really all began with me wanting to create changes in my own life. And I was really determined to figure out how I was going to do that. And one of the ways that helped me do that was when I created a group of people to teach it to, because then I became accountable to my ideas, to what I was saying. It was sort of the ultimate accountability. Really.
Accountable to your ideas. I like that. I'm writing that down because that's great. And I love what you said about, I'm reading that book right now by Elizabeth Gilbert. So that's wonderful. It really is about, we do what we need to learn. We do what we want to be in a lot of ways out into the world, and we're creative that way. And I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of where it needs to start. And, you can see where it leads you, but it starts with you and what you need.
Right. And speaking of what you need, I woke up this morning and I did what Ariana Huffington says not to do, where you grab your phone, and I opened up my email, and it was actually a really good thing because I read your email this morning, which is about leaving yourself alone. And it really moved me. I mean, those are the kind of things I want to read when I wake up in the morning. It was like a little meditation for myself to read it. So can you share a little bit about that? Because I think it's so important as women for us to learn the lesson that you were talking about.
Yeah, so I shared the story a couple nights ago. I was in a yoga class, a hot yoga. I've been going to hot yoga more recently for a little back injury that I've been dealing with. And I really like hot yoga, but for whatever reason, it was so hot in there this particular night. As I mentioned in the email, it was so hot that when the person behind, the mats were so tightly close together, when the person behind me breathed, I felt it on my shoulder. It was refreshing, which is how you want in a hot yoga class. That's how hot it was. It was so hot, and I was already exhausted. Before I even started moving, I was sweating, which I love a good sweat, but I was just for whatever reason, I just wasn't. I didn't have the physical strength that night. And we're moving through the vinyasas and the planks, and I'm like, I can't. I am cooked. No. I am cooked, And so I was like, let me just take a little rest in child's pose. And, they're very cool about it at the yoga studio. So there's certainly not an external pressure there that you have to keep up with everyone. They don't tell you that you have to do that. They're very encouraging of do what you have to do for your body. And so I moved into child's pose, but I found that when I was in child's pose, my mind was saying, oh, do one more plank. Do one more vinyasa. Do one more warrior. And I realized I wasn't really in child's pose. I wasn't getting the benefit of the rest, and I wasn't getting the benefit of anything else either. My mind was trying to tell me that I should. Right. It was going. And so my mind was trying to tell me that I should be somewhere other than where I am. And I think that happens to a lot of us. I think that we are, we start on an adventure of any kind, whether it's in business or relationship, and we're sort of second guessing it, or we think, oh, maybe I should have gone left instead of right, or maybe I should have made this decision instead of that one. And when we do that to ourselves, we don't really allow ourselves to be anywhere. We haven't really landed in the decision that we made, and we're not in the other choice either. So we're just kind of hanging about, and then we're not really present to our own lives, and we're not really present to our own feelings, and then we're not really getting the benefit of the choice that we made. And so, as I mentioned in the newsletter, I said, I kind of played a little game with myself. I always like to play some mental fun games, and I imagined for a moment that the teacher actually had said, everyone, I want you to take a nice big rest in child's pose. Now, of course, she didn't say that, but I imagined that, and I found myself, I was like, oh, okay, I'm allowed to rest. I suddenly gave myself permission to rest, and I went back to child's pose, and all of a sudden, I was able to inhabit the pose fully, totally, and completely. And it didn't mean that all of a sudden that rest gave me a ton of energy to complete the class and, go do some handstands. No, I was still really exhausted. But what I did get from it was I was able to fully be present, and I felt at peace and at ease with my choice because I inhabited my choice completely. And I think that's really the lesson there is, we have to really be where we are fully, wherever that is, whatever choice that we've made. And that's where you'll really find your power. That's where you'll also find your peace.
And it's not about resisting that. That's what I've noticed. I give myself a break a little bit more. I need to be reminded of that over and over again. As a mom, as a business owner, it's the shoulds come up in my head. And I find a lot of us have it, even if it's an exciting should. Yeah. I've been pausing these days. My friend was talking about this weekend. She's a breast cancer survivor, and she said, Kelly, every time someone asks me something, I pause, even if I'm really excited about it. And I a lot of times say, let me get back to you.
I
And
love that.
like, because she was saying yes and she didn't realize it to everything. It's the same kind of thing, isn't it? Do you think?
Absolutely. I had written another post about the same thing in terms of when you're making decisions. Sometimes I think the best thing to do before you answer, before you decide, is to take that pause that your friend so beautifully was talking about, to get really present to like, what's really important here? How do I really feel? Is this really what I want to do, as opposed to, reacting, saying yes, especially when it's something exciting. It's so easy to be like, that's a great idea. Let's do it. Let's create 6 new products in 2016. And you're like, what am I thinking? And then you have to backtrack. That's the downside. Is like you take on too much, and then you have to start turning back around and saying, I'm sorry, I can't do this, I can't do that, and you find yourself backing out of everything. So
Right, right. So I just think a lot of women in the world, especially in America and in the North America, we do that because we feel like we should and that we need to be the be all end all. And I just love that you just left yourself alone and gave yourself permission, because I think more of us need to do that, because then we'll be more present for ourselves.
totally. And I
Yeah.
mean, ultimately, if you really stop to think about, well, why do I want to do all these things that you take on, that you put on your plate? I think initially the thought behind it is, oh, I'll do these things because it will bring me happiness or joy, or maybe it's even because it'll bring me more money, which would bring me more happiness or freedom or joy. But we forget that like happiness, joy, and freedom really takes place in the present moment, in this moment. And it doesn't require all of these things and tricks and plate spinning to experience that joy and that happiness in the present moment. In fact, you can experience with none of those plates spinning. And that's, I think, really the goal. So it's important to remember, why. Like, what are we trying to get out of this? And that was the big lesson that I got from the yoga class. It was like, well, why did I really come here? I came to yoga because I want to relax. I want to feel more in my body. I want to feel more at peace, more at ease. Well, if I'm forcing myself into something that doesn't feel good, that feels stressful, then I'm missing the benefit.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I think we have to always remember. What are we going for here?
That's something I wish I had learned in my 20s. I'm, 47 as of this week, and now I'm like, okay, I'm going to get it by the time I'm 50, maybe. So
We're all works in progress.
I know. Thank you for that lesson. So you do so many things, and I definitely want to speak to a lot of them. But the thing that I'm the most excited about is, because I just signed up for it, is your shrink sessions. And I want to talk about them because it seems like you have this incredible curriculum that addresses not just the physical body, but the emotional and the mental. And speaking of being present to what is, really helps you to be present and then manifest through things like positive affirmations and mantras and physical movement at the same time. I'd like for you, now that I've teased everybody with it, I'd like for you to talk about that a little bit.
So Shrink Session it's a program that's designed to transform both your mind and your body at the same time. And one of the biggest things that I realized in my own life, and I started to see with clients as I was working in fitness, was when I transferred sort of out of dance, and I wasn't dancing anymore, and I was, still wanted to stay fit and active. I was going to fitness classes, and I would be in fitness classes, and I realized that the classes were all really about external results. Flex your biceps, squeeze your butt, strengthen your core, all of this great stuff, which is not bad, but I didn't feel like I was getting those benefits that I got when I was dancing, which for me, the joy of dance and movement was about expression and joy and finding new ways to move your body. And there was such a different intention behind, dancing and exercise. And so, what Shrink Session does is help to really marry that, so that working out and fitness is not about just the external results. It's about intention and how can you change sort of your interior life. And one of the biggest things, so Shrink Session, it's a combination of cardio dance, there's kickboxing, and then there's what I like to say yoga philosophy that's woven throughout. And by that, I really just mean that we're bringing mindfulness and intention to more upright physical activity, the same way that you would do in yoga. And one of the unique ways in which we do that is we're using mantras that we're saying out loud while you're moving at the same time. And the whole purpose of that really is to begin, this is another thing I realized that I experienced, I'm sure you've experienced this, perhaps some of the viewers also, is when you're working out and things get difficult or challenging and your legs start to shake or your heart starts to beat or you start to sweat and you don't like to sweat, you go into a story in your head. And usually the story is something like, this is hard, or or like, I suck at this. Or if you're in a class, sometimes it's like, this teacher sucks.
Yeah, you blame the teacher, right? I've done that. Yeah.
Like, they don't know what they're doing. And so what happens is when you go up into this story, it's, you know, it's taking you out of the moment. It's taking you out of your body. And it's just your body. It's just because you're uncomfortable. And that's what happens in life. When we get uncomfortable, when we're in a conflict situation in a relationship, say, you know, we start to feel uncomfortable, we go up into a story and say, this person is so annoying. I hate the way they act. I hate the way they're acting. As opposed to just like being present in the moment. And so the reason that we use the mantras while we're working out is because we want to sort of intercept the story, basically. So that instead of thinking, I suck, this is hard, you suck, I don't like this, we're having those feelings, we're having those physical sensations in the body, our legs are shaking, but instead of saying that, we're saying, I am strong, I am powerful. And basically what it's doing, it's really giving you a new identification with movement. You're beginning to change the story about how you feel around movement. Because the truth is, your body is way more powerful than you think. And there's studies now, scientific studies that say, you know, the reason our bodies fatigue is not just muscular fatigue. It's not because of our heart necessarily. Those are part of it. But a lot of the reason why we fatigue is because of what's happening inside our brains, because the stories that we tell ourselves. And, you know, they did these studies with bikers where they split them into, some of the bikers were using affirmations while they biked, the other ones weren't. And the ones who were using affirmations and mantras were able to sustain longer periods of time exercising. Wow. Because fatigue doesn't just happen in the body, it happens in the mind. And so the mantras really help to change that, because our bodies are designed to move. And when we're moving, as you mentioned, you feel joy, you feel movement in your life. And most of the time, we just need to get out of our own way so we can enjoy it.
I love that. I love it. The one thing I want to ask you, though, because I watched a couple of testimonials about it, and some people say, well, I might not believe it at first, or it felt a little weird saying it out loud. So how would you talk to people that were interested in doing this about that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so normal. I think there's definitely people who are like, this is weird, and I don't believe this, and, you know, I'm a magnet for success. I don't really think so. And so I find that happens, you know, I find that happens a lot with people, and that's absolutely okay. In fact, I got an email from a girl today who does the Soul Stroll, another one of the programs.
Right.
And she says, you know, I'm the one who's just whispering them to myself, and I'm like, that's perfect. I think, you know, it's something that Louise Hay talks about a lot in her work with affirmations, that you have to start and you have to give yourself the time and you have to repeat and repeat and repeat, and like eventually you come around, and you have to sort of act as if a little bit until your feelings kind of catch up with things. So I think that by saying them while you're working out, it helps you sort of act as if, and eventually. And
it's almost like an exercise, right, with your brain. Like you're training your brain. It's like,
yep.
You know, it's like you're training your body and you're training
yep.
your brain at the same time. That's what I was just thinking, you know? Like allowing for it to, because I mean, I lived in India and I did mantras, and what I found it did was it kept me here, and it
yep.
kept my mind from going there.
Yeah,
to what you're the negative belief systems that you're talking about.
Exactly. It's sort of, you know, when you think about like training a little puppy, you like have to be like, nope, come back, come back, you know. Mm-hmm. I think it's the same thing with our minds. It's to be like, no, we're not having that conversation. Right. Nope, we're not talking shit to ourselves today. Nope, you know. And I think that the mantras help bring it back to the moment.
Because it's nice to catch it. It really is, isn't it? Because we all do it, that negative self-talk.
Oh, yeah. And when you catch it, you get to kind of laugh at it, too. Because you're like, this is ridiculous. This conversation that I'm having with myself, this negative conversation, this is so silly. Because you realize it's all happening in your head. It's not real necessarily, but it feels very real when you're having it, you know.
It's not truth, right? It's not truth, definitely. So what else do you get when you sign up for the shrink session?
So the shrink session comes with, you get workouts. There are 45-minute workouts. We have some other bonus workouts. You get meditations that accompany the workout. So each workout is the workouts are designed really around manifesting. So there's intention, belief, inspired action, and allowing, which I believe are the 4 steps really of manifesting. So then there's meditations that go with each of these sessions, And then there are also some coaching worksheets so that you can take these ideas and principles from the workout and apply them into your life. Because usually what happens over time is when you can kind of keep going through the workouts over and over again and apply it to different areas of your life. So if we're talking about intention, sometimes your intention is working on your finances. Sometimes your intention is working on your career. Sometimes it's your body. So you get to bring in different areas of your life every time you do the workout. And that's what's so great about it, that you really can, every time you do the workout, depending on where you are in your life, you will approach it differently.
That's awesome. It's so great to actually have someone have packaged all of that together. I think it's fabulous. So what are some other programs you work with?
So we also have the Soul Stroll, which I love
that name.
Thank you so much. That product has just been so much fun. It's been such a blessing. Initially, it started out. Funny enough, I know a lot of people, your probably listeners, have their own businesses. A lot of them have their own. So this what I love about this one, actually, Marie Forleo was my coach years ago in a mastermind, and the Soul Stroll was actually one of my very first ideas for a product. But it didn't make sense to do at the beginning of my business, just because I didn't have the amount of people that it would make the most sense that it would, grow in the way I wanted it to grow. So it was one of those ideas I put in my pocket. I said, I'm going to do this one later when the time is right. And about 3 years later, I was like, now the time is right. So the Soul Stroll it's a playlist essentially with workout music. And then over the workout music, I've recorded mantras and inspiring coaching that goes along with it. And what's so cool about it is that you put it onto your phone and you can take it with you on the go. So you can take it for a stroll, you can take it for a run. If you like the elliptical, take it on the elliptical. If you do your own workouts at the gym, some people put it on in the car on their way to work. There are so many different ways you can use these playlists, even though it started as like go for a soul stroll, which I still think is a great thing to do. And it's great because you can still get the benefits of, the affirmations, the mantras, and the music together and do it at a pace that feels good for you. So I have people who are in their 70s who use the Soul Stroll and, people who are in their 20s. So you can be really at any level and any place in your life.
Well, and it's interesting. One thing I want you to know is most of the conversations I have, I don't ask people about their products or their services, but because I'm so moved by what you're doing. I'm not doing this as like an advertisement at all. I'm doing this because I believe in what you're doing, and I think it's just groundbreaking in so many simplistic ways, but it's beautiful the way you've put it together, and the teachings really embody everything our community is about, and that I'm really into these days. I mean, I've been to Sheila Kelly's S Factor, who really teaches to embody your power and your energy. Do you? Yeah. You love her?
I think she's great. I love everything she stands for. I've taken some S Factor. I love it. I love the slowing down and the sensuality. It's so beautiful. I think, that's, what I'm most passionate about, that I'm sure she is as well, is I want people to feel good in their bodies. And I know that so many people have so many different journeys with their bodies of how they felt, whether or not there was, any kind of abuse, or they were just not a good athlete growing up, or they were always, felt like they were always the chubby one, or whatever it may be. And I don't think that any of those people should feel left out of moving. And you don't need to be an athlete to move. You don't need to be coordinated. You don't need to be even fit. But I promise you that if you find a way to move and get inside your body, you will see other areas of your life change. I am 100% certain of that.
Everything, like when you said, you like to move people. Yeah. Move people, that's what happens. It starts moving and shaking everything, right, in your life?
Everything in your life. And so, I obviously offer one way of moving, but there are so many great ways to move. So I think that, Sheila Kelly is great. Like, one thing I really love about Strength Session, what I do is sometimes it's a great place for people to start who are having trouble getting started moving. And then, I love when my students come and they say, and now I'm going to yoga, or now I'm going to spin, or now I'm going to, weightlifting or kickboxing, because now they feel confident in their bodies to go and do lots of other things. And I'm like, success. That's what we want. We want you to feel alive and good so that you go out and climb a mountain or play with your kids or whatever it is that you want to do.
Have the energy. Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So in wrapping this up, I just wanted to ask you, and I usually ask people, one piece of wisdom or one thing you want women to know, like a phrase or a statement or just a piece of wisdom that you've learned in your life that you'd like to share?
I think the biggest one that I always come back to, and it's not even, it's one that I have to come back to again and again. Frankly, it's a one that I have to remind myself of on a regular basis. But it's a simple mantra, and it's really just I am enough.
Hmm.
It's so simple, and one thing I like to do is that I just like put my hand on my heart and I close my eyes and I just say like I am enough. Like it's enough. Like what I did today, that was enough. Like who I am, that's like enough. What I'm wearing, like what
It's
I said,
enough.
what I wrote, what I did, it's enough. Like it's good enough. And I have to say that to myself constantly, because
It's your
especially
mantra. Yeah.
that's the mantra. We're always striving. It kind of comes back to that same lesson that we started with in the yoga class. But that to me has been the most powerful gift that I give myself, and I would encourage other people to give themselves. Like I think that's everything, because when you really live in that space, you can be present, you can be open, you can be relaxed, and most importantly, you can be kind and loving to yourself.
Hmm. Well, you exude kindness and lovingness. You're not the typical like trainer, like go, go, you're just like this gentle place to fall. So I really appreciate what you're doing for women in the world. And thank you for talking to us today. Please, everyone, go check out ErinStutland.com. Her bio and all her information about her services and program will be on the homepage, along with a couple of videos for you to check out. So thank you again, Erin.
Thank you so much. Thank
So
you.
great to talk to you.